I guess we'll call them clients, they're not patients, but when your clients come in and agree to start working with you, what have been some of the responses that you've seen? Because I can imagine someone that is neurodiverse, any new environment could be a challenge.
Right.
What are you seeing as far as the responses of what you guys are doing in their lives?
Well, I'll give you an example. We had a young man that came in. He'd been in the foster care system almost his entire life, and he was on the autism spectrum and had been extremely aggressive as a younger child, easily angered. He had had some traumatic issues when he was younger, so there were all types of things that were impacting him that complicated his neurodiversity. And when he came to us, originally what we had been told by social workers and medical team was that they just wanted to see if it was possible for us to help him communicate with other individuals without getting upset. And so what we did was we started a communications, kind of like a communications gameplay, communications orientation sort of, and began to help him see that he could communicate, that there were ways that he could talk to people that wouldn't be seen as odd or different, where he could be accepted in small groups, and then we began to build those groups. And the interesting thing about that was that we taught him how to fill out a job application, because they don't always know. Or if they have dysgraphia, they may not be able to write it out, or they may not know how to do it online. So we walked him through how to do that. We walked him through how to go through an interview, what an interview process might look like, what it might look like with one person, what it might look like with three people, what it might look like if they were giving him a task to do to repeat. And so he went through that. That process was about 6 months. And we were able to get him a position with Bausch& Lomb, who has a warehousing company. They ship out contact lenses to ophthalmologists across the country. And so he began doing that for 3 hours a day, 2 days a week. Very, very short periods of time. He was only working with one specific individual. The times were set so that it was advantageous for him. He actually took a bus from his home to get to work and then back home. He didn't want to learn to drive, so he took the bus. And so we helped him with that. And our mentors continued to work with him over the next year. And this was a very amenable employer in that they wanted to see him succeed. So as we worked with him, we began to help him develop. There was a buddy system that we set up for him with other employees. So he began to network within those buddies, and they began to talk, and so he felt comfortable with them. So then they began to teach him another step and another step. That was 4.5 years ago. He is now the director for that particular warehouse unit. So he went from not being able to, or not wanting to talk to people that he didn't know, to being able to go through an interview, being able to fill out an application, then being able to build relationships with one peer, then another colleague, then a few. And eventually, over time, as we began to work with him and work with that employer, he was able to go on to he is now fully independent, makes his own money, he pays his own bills, he rents his apartment, and he has a job that he loves. So those are things that can happen. And that's the way that we like to work with the individual. And we have a partnering firm that works with employers to help them develop programs, HR programs that support neurodiverse individuals. So we work together with them so that we can build those types of scenarios, and so that we can take situations that look like they may not be possible and make them possible. We kind of take them outside the box, flip the box upside down, turn it around, and stand on top of it and say, we can achieve this if we work together. All of us working together. That's the parents, that's Connected Pathways, and that's the employers and the individual with neurodiversity. We can work together to help them become successful in what they want to do. And then it brings success to the employer as well.
And to the community as a whole. So this is what I heard you say, is that it took a lot of time from people to invest in a person's life that was worth investing in. to an individual, had you guys not invested the time and talents into that, would probably be someone who would be counting on the government to take care of them from here on out. Because I mean, what you described to me was someone that was not capable of running a warehouse in the beginning, that may not have been capable to hold an entry-level position full time. But because people need other people to believe in them and invest in them, and by doing that, to me, that's what community is. By doing that, we can see others grow. Me as a layperson, not fully understanding the effects of neurodiversity within our community and within individuals, what are some of the things that we can do to have a better understanding of the things that we can help or support in, whether it be as a community member, whether it be someone in someone's class, or someone that's in the workforce and a new individual comes on board? What can we as a community do to help people with neurodiversity? I know it's probably a really big ask, but before we started this podcast off camera, I mean, I just told you straight up that I felt like, maybe at a time, just using the word normal, I might have offended somebody, and I never my intent, but sometimes we just don't know what we don't know until we know. So what would you want the community to know and understand about the neurodiverse? And I've learned today and over the past couple of days that neurodiversity is a lot of stuff. It's not, you can't put it in a box and say, all we're talking about is autism or people that are on a spectrum, because everyone's going to be different and different. What can we learn from this as just a community?
I think one of the main things that we can do as a community is to try to recognize that we have biases, even if we don't want to admit it. When we see someone who behaves differently than we do, or if we see someone who withdraws or looks away or who doesn't have constant eye contact, we often assume the negative, or we assume that that person's different. Wait, I'm gonna step back. That's not okay. And I think that that the main thing for our community is to realize that just because they're different doesn't mean that they aren't valuable, that
Yes.
they aren't just as valuable as anyone else in our society, that we all have our own differences. If we think about it for a moment, we probably don't learn the same way.
Sure.
We probably don't speak the same way. We don't all have the same dialect. We all have differences. And so because our brains think a little bit differently, or maybe process information a little bit differently, I hope that our community will begin to look at it as, if they see it differently than me, maybe there's value there. If they see it differently, maybe together we could find something new. We could find a better way. Maybe we could do this faster. Maybe we could do it better. Maybe we could have less errors. Maybe by coming together, we can build a stronger community. We can build a better society, because the reality is these individuals have differences that we tend to pick up on that we really should embrace, not push back
Sure.
against. And if we can do that, no different than, as I said before, no different than someone who learns different in the classroom. These individuals may learn differently. They probably pick up much more than what we assume. I think a lot of times we assume that because they're not speaking to us, that they're not grasping. They're probably grasping everything that you said in tremendous detail. Just because they don't speak back at that moment doesn't mean that they didn't. A lot of times they're processing so many thoughts per second. And I'll give you an example. My son says, "Mom, when you say church, I see every church, every steeple I've ever seen in any book ever." And that all processes. It's 10,000 of them all at one time. So if I don't give you an immediate answer when you ask me, it isn't because I didn't hear you or because I don't want to respond, but I have all of that information running through my mind.
That I have to process.
And then I process that to give you that right answer. So it may take me a little longer. And for many neurodiverse individuals, it may take them a little bit longer. It isn't because I think a term that I used to hear a couple of decades ago, but I would, oh, this person is slow.
Yeah.
They may be slow in responding, but their thought process is not necessarily slow. More than likely, they're processing a tremendous amount of information to give what they believe is the best answer, or processing that to do the right maneuver or take the right step. And so I think if as a community we can understand that a little bit better, and when we see these individuals realize that there's so much more going on there's so much value underneath what we see at face value, then I think that it gives us all a better grounding. I think it brings us all closer. I think it helps us be stronger, become stronger as a community. And that's what we really want to see, is to see our community become stronger, support one another.
Everybody has value. We just need to make sure we take the time to understand that person's unique value they can bring to the table.